There's a passage from the hymns on paradise by Saint Ephraim the Syrian that often stirs in me, and I'd like to read it to you. It goes like this. God did not permit Adam to enter that innermost tabernacle. This was withheld, so that first he might prove pleasing in his service in that outer tabernacle. Like a priest with fragrant incense, Adam's keeping of the commandment was to be his censer. Then he might enter before the hidden one into that hidden tabernacle. So Ephraim imagines all of Eden as a sanctuary. Eden was for Adam and Eve before the fall, quite simply, the world. It was the enclosure of beatitude within which their destiny was by God's design to unfold. And this sanctuary was divided into two, the outer and the inner tabernacle. The curtain dividing one from the other was represented by the tree of which man was not to eat. At that point, the single commandment he had to observe. We know what happened. Not only did the intended passage into the inner sanctum not occur, by his fragmentation of intention, man made himself unfit even for service in the outer tabernacle. He was excluded from Eden's sanctuary altogether, its gate kept henceforth by cherubim wielding their turning flaming swords. For present purposes, we might note two principal points from Ephraim's account. First, man's original existence is conceived of as having a priestly character. The finality of human existence is worship, supremely exercised when man freely conforms his mind to that of his Maker and acts accordingly, so realizing a grandeur in himself that left to his own notions he would never even have suspected. The second point is this: what exists, the world, exists in order to reveal the hidden one. It is man's singular mission to move from unseeing adoration to vision, to see God as he is, and to make him seen. Aspects of this priestly mission are manifest in the lives of the patriarchs. They proclaimed God's name, invoking his presence within the land that was, as far as thistles and thorns would permit, to become Eden-like, a choice land. They prayed, they performed acts of dedication, they sought to know God's will and to carry it out, to be a blessing, as the Lord had charged Abraham already back in Haran. It was only after the exile in Egypt, however, during their return to the land, desired by some, spurned by others, that Israel was given a formal priesthood to epitomize and enact in the name of all their corporate vocation. The rationale for this institution is given in the book of Exodus, which, after the account of Aaron's priestly commission, speaks in perhaps disconcerting detail of the practical preparations needed to make ready for the cult and to furnish Israel's sacristy. These chapters of Exodus are not perhaps our favorite passages of the Bible for Lectio Divina, but they merit attention. Permit me to hone in on one particular detail from the 28th chapter of Exodus, which itemizes Aaron's glorious adornment required for his entry into the inner tabernacle. We should note, first of all, that the mere fact that such a place should exist, the inner tabernacle, that the mystery of God with us should become spatial reality, marks a revolution in the economy of mercy. Henceforth, Israel would know where God could be found, adored, and besought, at least as long as they remembered God and his deeds on the people's behalf. But we know that only a few generations later, when those renegade sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, exercised the priesthood at Shiloh, the ark, which represented God's presence in the world, in the tabernacle, was regarded as little more than a talisman. No one seemed to miss the ark much when it went missing in battle against Philistine forces. And even when the ark returned to Israel, it spent a good while in oblivion, parked in Abinadab's dismal house on the hill, a sort of ark park. The Exodus account, however, stresses the tabernacle's sublimity. Aaron's first entering the tabernacle marks a decisive stage in the restoration to mankind by grace of what Adam had lost in justice's name. Aaron was gloriously robed to face God invisibly enthroned on the ark's mercy seat. The Septuagint calls this seat hilasterion, and that is, as you know, the very term St. Paul would later use in his letter to the Romans as a designation for Christ, whom God, he wrote, put forward as a hilasterion by his blood. That word can be understood as both the sacrifice of atonement and the place of atonement, indicating the totality of the oblation that sealed the new and eternal covenant. Foremost on the list of Aaron's priestly garments is his breastpiece. The specifications for confection read like a litany. The breastpiece is to be made of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet stuff, fine twined linen, a span in length and breadth. And then, we're told, you shall set in it 4 rows of stone. A row of sardius, topaz, and carbuncle should be the first row, and the second row an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond, and the third row a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst, and the fourth row a beryl, an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be set in gold filigree. There shall be 12 stones with their names according to the names of the sons of Israel. They shall be like signets, each engraved with its name for the 12 tribes. And that is wonderful. For putting on this singular garment, Aaron would always, each time he entered the holy place, bear Israel's sons' names on his heart in continual remembrance before the Lord. The names were to be lodged there on his heart, together with the Urim and the Thummim, those priestly devices for obtaining oracles and for distributing judgment. Thus, we read, Aaron shall bear the judgment of the people of Israel upon his heart. He is to be a conduit recalling to the Lord Israel's need, and to Israel, God's standard of justice. In the New Testament, the apostles appear as successors to Jacob's sons, called to engender an ecclesia, embracing ultimately all mankind. And it's splendid that in the Bible's last book, the Apocalypse, we find the eschatological city, which is home to this new humanity, surrounded by walls that are adorned in a way that recalls the high priest's breastplate pretty exactly. The first wall was jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth carnelian, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, the 12th amethyst. And on these walls are the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. They correspond to those of Jacob's sons engraved upon the precious stones of Aaron's garment. So to be a citizen of the New Jerusalem is to exist by conflating these two models of design, that of the breastplate and that of the city. It is to reside within the very heart of him who perfected and fulfilled what Aaron had foreshadowed. It is to be configured to him who proved himself perfectly obedient to the Father's will, pouring himself out in love to the end, thus restoring man's innocence. Subsisting within the breastplate, building up the city whose light is the Lamb, we are graced to regain a priestly dignity and purpose that were ours at the first. We have the consolation of being eternally remembered in Christ's heart At the same time, we are agents of remembrance in his name on behalf of all the names entrusted to us, the names of all those whose lives have impacted on ours, in the hope that none might be forgotten, none lost, in the hope that mercy might extend to all. We are to pour out our lives in communion with Christ for that cause in sacerdotal compassion. Such is the nature of a priestly people, destined to become a single priestly body. It's very commendable, no, it's more than commendable, it's tremendous and exciting that this mystery is the focus of our conference, rich in substantial contributions and rich in promise. We're invited to pursue our reflections in view of the renewal of the Church according to the program, and that is an urgent purpose. May these days serve that purpose well, and may we, with hearts renewed, discover the joy of swinging Adam's censer, and perhaps even, who knows, catch a glimpse of the inner tabernacle. Thank you.